What's up, folks, and welcome to the Modern Truths Throwback Thursday. I'm MJ, here with Alex Storm, and we're going to do what we always do on Throwback Thursdays. We're going to talk about an old school movie. So, Alex, what movie did we watch for this episode of Throwback Thursday?
This week we watched Rosemary's Baby. It came out in 1968. It starred Mia Farrow, and it was directed by Roman Polanski.
Yeah. All right, so let's just dig right into it. What did you think about Rosemary's Baby?
This was your recommendation. I've never seen this movie, and I've heard of it. I feel like it was a movie I was probably told to watch when I was a kid because it was scary. Mm-hmm. And I actually,
you were a kid, huh?
Well, younger. But I actually loved it. I was a little nervous at the beginning that it was going to be too slow, and it is slow. It's a really slow burn, the entire movie. And really the culmination happens in the last, 15 minutes, maybe even less. But it was so worth it because I was curious. I was curious about whatever the mystery was. And, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about this movie, it is a product of its time. Pacing, definitely not what we consider modern pacing for a film. But one of the other things that I really like about it is the fact that it doesn't handhold the audience. There are a lot, there's a central mystery going on in this movie. It's a mystery that is not thinly veiled by any stretch of the imagination, but it is never overtly explained. There are things that are you just have to figure out. You just have to be able to put two and two together. And I think about so many moments where if it were a modern film, they would have had a little cut away to a flashback, or they would have shown the other angle of the guy, doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing, or a conversation between people. And this movie is just you should be able to figure this out. Put two and two together, man. You see the results. You know what's going on.
But really, some of the things I didn't figure out until they did break it down, until she read that you have to have somebody, pieces of somebody's things or objects of somebody to cast a spell on them. Before that, I hadn't paid any attention to the things that were missing, or the paths that had been crossed, so that people could have each other's objects.
Well, I think that's the key to it, right? Because it's it doesn't follow one of the rules of modern filmmaking, which is if you do establish something, the rules have to be already well known, so therefore the audience will know to look for it. So, for example, the scene where the guy who comes to visit her, her husband, he's yo, where's my glove? It's you don't know at that point that the glove is important to some sort of satanic ritual. So you may think nothing of it, except that you have to know, just as a person who watches movies, that you have to assume that it's not here for no reason. And the same thing with the guy who her husband gets the role from because he goes blind. It's you are way after the fact. You're okay, this guy went blind, he gets the role. You don't necessarily think anything of it at the time. And then she calls the guy, and she's yo, did he take anything? And this is a scene you never see. You never see the two of them meet. You're never made aware up to this point that they were ever in a room together, really. There was not a scene where she was oh, so, good luck on your lunch with so-and-so. You just never know that this happened, and then later you're supposed to remember that this character had this thing happen to him and be able to put two and two together, So, I as a guy who loves movies and a avid film watcher who watches films intently, I can appreciate a film, even though it's, 50 freaking years old at this point, that is hey, you're not an idiot. But I guess maybe people were a little more in tune with
more
things.
attuned to movies then. They weren't doing any other things while they were watching.
Yeah, they weren't
they
texting,
were just
I guess,
watching and enjoying the movie for what it was back then. I was nervous about our female character. There are a lot of moments in this that I raised my eyebrows. I was whoa, I can't believe that's happening. The way the husband treats the wife. But then I had to realize, this was 1968, and people probably were not shocked or put off by this at all at the time. But it was off-putting to me. But then it was also, still showed her in, a somewhat positive light, because it turns out she wasn't crazy. But you totally see all these men telling her, no, you're crazy. We're going to take care of you because something's wrong with your brain, Which, that part I could totally see happening still in movie today. But in the end, she, still comes out in somewhat a strong character, because she decides to go figure out what's up with her baby, and I don't know, maybe falls into the cult because of it, but it's still a cool moment for her to decide to take control and do something about it.
To me, it's yet another fascinating history lesson, and this is why we do Throwback Thursday, man. Look, I'll be the first to tell you, I personally like history, real, actual history. But, hey, if you don't want to crack open a freaking novel or a freaking thesaurus or whatever it is that you get your history from, You can watch movies, man, like at least some somewhat recent history, and you can sort of get a glimpse into what life was like, because there are still just like certain things, like, we gotta go back to the Carrie episode we did. It was like the guy's slapping the girl in the face, and she's not flinching at being slapped in the face. She's flinching because he's doing some other stuff. Same thing in this one. It's like, the scene where she's arguing with her husband, and he says something like, essentially he threatens violence against her. Like, very, it's very clear. And she's just like, okay, it's like, it's just the whole dynamic between men and women in this society. This is the society that they were living in at the time. This is not like some weird, like, the character of her husband, if he was the exact same character now, he would be a villain. I mean, technically, I guess he is still a villain, but he's not a villain. Like, the intent of him, or I am certain when the movie came out, was not that he was betrayed. Like, everything that he does was villainous. It was like
he's a bad guy the whole time.
Yeah, he had this other agenda. Whereas now you would be like, this guy's terrible. He's the worst guy ever. And it's like, it's just really interesting to look at how things have changed.
Yeah. I thought the other thing that was really interesting that is different from our time is the neighbors. Like, I mean, they know their neighbors, they interact with their neighbors, but the neighbors are so intrusive. And I just think of today, like, how closed off we are from everyone around us all the time, and how we don't even want somebody who's sitting on a bench next to us to talk to us, or in the elevator to talk to us. And, like, these neighbors are just part of their lives.
Yeah.
From the beginning. And I just think of how unbelievable that would be for people to watch that today. They'd be like, no, I would tell my neighbors to leave me alone.
Well,
like,
I don't know.
This would not happen.
I don't know if people would do that, because I even think what I think is interesting is that even for that time, she was like, okay, like she was never really digging them.
Kind of like, all right, like.
But I think one of the big issues was the age of them, because that sort of comes in later. She's like, we're gonna hang out with our friends, the ones that, you can't get in if you're over 50 or whatever. It's like, so it wasn't so much that she was thrown off by neighbors. If their neighbors were people in their 20s or 30s, they probably would have been cool with them.
Yeah.
But it's these old people who were just being weird and being really overbearing.
Still this fact of like this necessity to be polite. That I don't think people feel anymore.
Yeah, again, I mean, I don't know. I say outside of the big cities, I think the necessity still does exist. I think if you're in the South or something, I think that, people still, I can see myself not telling the old neighbor to get the hell away from me and leave me alone if he wanted to come, talk to me for 15 minutes a day or whatever it was they're trying to do. There definitely would be a cutoff point, and that cutoff point was reached here, when they're, again, becoming completely just all up in your stuff in a way that they shouldn't be. So, I mean, that's fair, but okay, so we have to also talk about the fact that, this is a horror film, and I think one of the coolest things about it for me is that, this is back when horror movies were treated like every other movie, like they were real movies. Like they weren't, it's at the bottom of the barrel, least recognizable actor, worst, pull him off the street director. This is Roman Polanski. This guy is considered a great filmmaker, and this is one of his great films. And it's like, it still goes to show, like, what happens when you have great filmmakers working with horror material, even though this movie was not like, packed with scares. Really, there were hardly any scares at all. But it had this mood, this vibe of just
It was very heavy, very
eerie.
dark.
Yeah,
eerie. And the mystery. You're trying to figure it out the whole time. And I feel like horror movies today, there might be some mystery. You might be trying to figure out what it is that's scaring people or what it is that's making the house haunted. But ultimately, you know what you're going to get. You know that you're going to get scared. You know there's going to be things that make you jump. And you know that you're going to find out it's a ghost or it's like somebody being
possessed or something, or just being
or
crazy.
Like an evil toy in the house. Something you like. There's one of like 5 options that it's going to be. And it doesn't really matter which one it is.
Yeah.
And this one, you're trying to figure out a mystery. And you have an idea. Yes, this has something to do with like witchcraft and Satan and stuff. But it's not so important because like the whole story is not that this thing exists and you're figuring out what this thing is. You're trying to figure out like why this thing is involved in their lives and what it has to do with her being pregnant and her having a baby.
I mean, and I think it's called Rosemary's Baby. This is one of the crucial elements, for any of you aspiring filmmakers out there. You want to know how to make a compelling story. As it turns out, no matter how fantastical your story is, you need to have a human element there to give the audience something to grasp onto. And so, I mean, look, there have been a bunch of movies about possessed babies since this movie came out, but this was pretty much like, though this was the movie that sort of set that trend off, and it still does it better than probably all of them, because of how long it is and how slow it is. Like, you actually see this whole entire process of them sort of trying to build this middle America existence, this happy family, and then going through that whole thing. It's like you're literally with them for a year.
I think I said, like, at the beginning of the movie, I was like, oh my God, this movie's going to be so long. She's not even pregnant, and we have to get to where she has the baby. Which it was, but it was good.
But, like, all that stuff felt important to me, and it's like, I don't know, man. One of my favorite parts is that last scene. You know, it's like seeing the reaction of her husband, and there's, to me, there's a historical context there as well, because I feel like if it were modern, and I mean, I don't know, there was a recent Rosemary's Baby miniseries, I believe it came out 2014, if I'm not mistaken. But it's like, and I don't know how that went because I didn't watch it, but I would imagine a modern version would be tougher to pull off that, because we just have to think that the husband would actually tell his wife, because like, what is his motivation to not tell her? Like, it seems so weird. Like, I mean, obviously
it's going to be the outcome afterwards.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to look like 3 months down the road.
It's all this witchcraft and all that stuff, and maybe, you know, maybe you guys as significant others aren't down with like selling their soul to the devil for the come up or whatever. But I mean, no, being very serious, like her character, everything I've come to understand about that character, including the ending of the film, you would think that she would have been like, okay, like, and so that was probably one of the more interesting things. Like, hey, guess what? I have to go, you know, put a little hex on this guy, and I get to be, you know, get more money and be successul, and we're good, you know. The problem is you're gonna have the spawn of Satan, you know, little catch.
Yeah.
I guess you probably want to be.
I mean, maybe I missed this, but I feel like the husband, he wasn't involved before they moved there, right?
Yeah, no, he wasn't. No.
So maybe that was the piece.
You know what? Maybe, I'm sure actually I say that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the case with who knows. Maybe there's some weird Rosemary's Baby website out there that'll be like, no, there's signs that he was involved in this from the beginning.
I mean, thinking back, I don't remember for sure. It happened really suddenly. He started hanging out with them all the time.
Yeah, because he fell into it really fast.
But yeah, either way, you would think that he didn't purposely move them there to like have her give up her baby.
Yeah,
for them.
Yeah, for sure. But he certainly didn't seem to. He was very reluctant about it. But guess what? It wasn't his movie, you know. So you don't need to see him being torn up about it. But he was very adamant about you're tripping. No, everything's okay. Calm the fuck down, you know. And again, I mean, that sounds like about right, including the doctor at the end, who's just like, your wife's a little whacked out right now.
She's losing it.
You go take her, you know, give her some pills.
I did love, I felt like the last scene was so good, because it was like you saw these nightmares that you weren't really sure were real at the beginning, you know, where she's like having these like terrible images of getting impregnated by the devil and like all these people being around, and you're like kind of wondering if it's real or not. And then that last scene was so similar to, and I guess there was also when she had the baby, there was like a similar nightmarish vibe. But the last scene was so similar to like a nightmare, where she was just like walking in and just like seeing face after face after face that she recognized. And I thought it was so well done, because like it was so, I don't know, it was so real. It was like, this is what you would experience if you were a delusional like person who was paranoid about people around you. You would see their faces all over and then walk into a room full of them. And for that to be like her reality that she was facing at the end, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I mean,
it was well thought out.
That kind of triggered a thought to me. I was going to say, think about those dream sequences and stuff. I was like, that was the one funny thing that I feel like didn't really hold up well. Like just the lack of technology, the editing, the transitions, whatever it was they were using. I was like, man, that would be something that I think would look, would definitely look better. Or I could see like this disorienting, really weird visual presentation could be, more, could be executed more visually, with higher visual fidelity now than it was at the time. But again, for what it was at the time, this is a groundbreaking film, a very important movie. So I would just say, maybe in closing, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the movie, but if you haven't seen Rosemary's Baby, this can't come highly recommended enough. This is definitely one of the horror films. If you consider yourself a horror film and you haven't seen this movie, you need to go check it out. It's really important. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's it.
I loved it. I'd recommend it as well.
Well, there you go. So that's
awesome.
two.
Surprisingly awesome. You have to try it.
There you go. Try it. You might like it. All right, so that will conclude our discussion of Rosemary's Baby. Again, I am MJ, and you can follow me on Twitter at @theonlymj. She is.
I'm Alex Storm. You can follow me at AlexStormTMT, as in the Modern Truth.
And themoderntruth.com is where you can find all of our Throwback Thursday videos, movie discussion videos, and all the news you need to know. Thanks again for tuning in, folks. Take care.